On today's episode, we have Brandon Johnson here to share his journey of overcoming drug addiction to becoming a coach for high-achieving men. I'm Adam Vibe Gutton, and this is the Recovered on Purpose show. The black represents the darkness from which we came. The white represents the light in which we now live. And the red represents the passion it takes to live Recovered on Purpose. All right, guys, today's episode is brought to you by Recovered on Purpose. Recovered on Purpose was founded with the vision of raising up an army of recovered addicts to tell their stories in powerful and impactful ways to free others suffering from the bondage of addiction, as well as tell our stories in the school system to deter the future generations from going down the path of addiction. If this sounds like this is you, if this message jives with you and you want to be part of this mission, send a message to this page and let me know if you want to do a live video or possibly be interviewed for this show. Guys, I'm really excited about today. Brandon is a Jesus follower and a family man that loves life and welcomes all the challenges it brings. He helps high-achieving men find their more without sacrificing their family and their peace of mind. Brandon, thank you so much for being here, brother.
Adam, it's an honor to be with you, my man.
Awesome. So, man, something that's really interesting to me that I love that we're about to go into this is that there's so many people that have a past, right, that you would just never guess. You would never guess that this person that's coaching high-achieving men, that has this family life and this well put together life, has the past that you have, right? So what we're going to do with the start of this show is, because we have to go back there, right? We have to go back to where we were in the drug addiction, we were having those issues, so that people know that, we have that same relation, right? So what was going on back in those times of drug addiction and suffering?
Yeah. So, I would say that, throughout high school, it's kind of like where I started experimenting, but it was just that I would drink beer with the guys. My dad drank beer growing up, and I saw him drink, so it wasn't a really big thing. I never saw him abuse alcohol growing up, so I just, that was kind of the next step when we got into high school, right? We would drink beer with the guys, play, go to the game, play the ball game, and go drink beer and hang out with the friends. And it wasn't probably until about my junior year in high school that had some friends that started experimenting, smoking weed, and that kind of led to some other things. And just for me, it was the first time I realized that I was kind of that risk taker, that mentality. I knew that from being on the ball field, but then, I said, well, okay, let's see what this is all about. And so thankfully, I guess my personality didn't take too well to smoking weed, just kind of being that downer, but I had some of my guy friends that really, really liked it. But anyway, I did experiment with some hardcore drugs before I graduated. Cocaine was probably the most, and this is back in the mid '90s. So, just to kind of date myself a little bit, but that's kind of like where it began, and then it evolved beyond that.
Okay, so what did it look like when it began to evolve, right? Because we all have that point of change, right? Where we go from the high school experimentation to possibly the partying a little bit, the drinking, smoking weed, doing coke with friends and things. And then it starts to evolve into something that we feel out of control of, and almost like a lot of us are using against our will. So what was that point of change where it began to evolve away from the high school experimentation?
Yeah. So when we started doing the clubs before I graduated high school, but it kind of became more a lifestyle. And that's really when it kind of went to the next level. My association, usually there was always some type of drug activity involved, whether it was, again, smoking weed, or it kind of evolved into doing, being a clubber, doing ecstasy. And I just fell in love with it. And it sounds awful, but it was just one of those. If you've ever experienced that, that's why they call it ecstasy, right? So, right. And that opened up more doors for, just that lifestyle, and then continuing on. So what I found was that I really my drug of choice really kind of became narcotic painkillers, Lortabs, and then to kind of stop right there, it wasn't really a coincidence, because my dad had struggled with narcotic addiction with me growing up. I didn't know this, but he struggled with it all throughout his adult life as a firefighter, and so there was a generational aspect to that. The Bible calls it the kind of the sins of the father, and some people relate to it as a kind of a generational deal. But nevertheless, I was arrested at 19, a year after I graduated high school, for forging prescriptions. I literally grabbed a script pad from my pediatrician and wrote out scripts to high pain Lortabs, 10 milligram in multiple refills. And so I went back for a refill, and I was arrested for that. Wow. And that was an eye-opening experience, because I was raised in a good home, played sports, was a good person. And so I just made a bad decision. I made a bad decision, and I would love to say that just turned everything around, but it did not at that moment. But fortunately, my wife and I, we'd just begun dating, and then over the next year or so, I did learn some lessons that, hey, this is not what I want for my life. I don't want to ever be put in handcuffs and be put in the back of a car again. That's just not who I am. I don't want to ever be in front of a judge where I could potentially be facing time in jail, the county jail, and so that fortunately, I was given youthful offender, and so I was able to work out of that, and I slowly kind of walked away from that. But what brought my addiction back around was that my dad finally succumbed to his addiction. I was 23. I was in a good place. I had just started a business, and he had it finally killed him. His addiction. He was taking benazepine and methadone, and he'd kind of been forced in retirement, and it was just unfortunate. But from that point on, I turned to something that was comfortable for me. Again, it was another bad decision. I was in a good place in my life, spiritually, business, family. We had our oldest daughter, kind of was a baby at that point. But and that I made that choice to start taking these narcotic painkillers to numb the pain, and that led into an 8-year battle that it was very destructive.
Wow. And I relate so much to that, because I had a point in my life right around like 21, 22 years old, where I had just actually gotten off of the Oxycontin and the painkillers. And then I had this traumatic experience where I got in a motorcycle accident, and I had my best girlfriend on the back. You can actually see the scar on my head from what happened. She was wearing the helmet. But after that experience, I thought that everybody around me hated me. I thought all of my friends hated me. I thought that nobody was on my side, because they charged me with DUI that night. But I consented to blood, and it was just a really long story. But basically, I wasn't DUI, and I got that all dropped because the blood came back with nothing in my system. But in the time between the accident to where they dropped all the charges, I was suffering so much with emotional pain, with shame, with guilt, with thinking that everybody hates me and all this stuff, that my only solution that I knew about was opiates. So in that time was actually when I decided to pick up heroin to, like you said, numb the pain. And it's so interesting that we connect on, when we talk about numbing the pain, right? We are never talking about physical pain. We're talking about this internal battle that we have. So where did it go from there? And I'm sorry to hear about your dad with that, but where did it go with after picking up the painkillers again?
Yeah, and you're so right, Adam. Is that it's not the physical, because see, really, I had really never dealt with a lot of strife in my life until that point. I mean, I'd had some disappointments, but growing up, again, playing sports, and I mean, I was 23, so I wasn't that far removed from So that was my life. My worldview was athletics. And so, again, other than my parents divorcing, I just hadn't dealt with a whole lot of, a lot of difficulty, adversity. And so really this was it. And I remember waking up the day that my dad, we buried my dad, and thinking, this is literally the hardest day of my life. Like, and I was 23, my brother was 6 years younger than me. He was still in high school, and he was much closer to my dad at that point than I was. I mean, again, I'd kind of been I'll call, for a lack of a better term, babysitting my dad during his, because he lived with us, he stayed with us, my wife and I, and so where we went from there was, I got prescriptions to pain, the pain pills, and so I would take them, and then the dosage would just continue to increase each day because your body gets more and more used to it, right?
Yeah.
And so the next thing you know, I found myself taking 20 Lortabs a day.
Wow.
And just chasing the high. And I'm thinking, what in the world am I doing? It was one of those moments where I'm sitting in the back of the police car with cuffs on me going, what are you doing, man? And so even though I'd kind of watched my dad, kind of slowly kill himself, I'm thinking, because when I started taking those at him, I wasn't thinking about, okay, this is going to turn into a 10-year addiction. I'm going to ruin my life. No, I was just looking for a temporary. I didn't fully understand how addiction worked because I'd never been addicted. And so, yeah, it just like, pretty much any addiction, you increase in dosage, and then you're looking for the next strongest thing. And then, oxys enter my world. And then, I mean, from that point on, you're going deeper down the rabbit hole. And so that included driving across town. I had I gotten prescriptions for like small dosage, oxys at one point, but the majority of them we were chasing from dealers. And so I'm driving across town. I'm driving over here. I've got friends looking, and just living that lifestyle, lying to my wife, telling her I'm going to be at work. I'm going over here, and then taking them orally, evolved into, to snorting them. And these are pills now that are, legislation has been passed for obvious reasons. So, I mean, This is 15 years ago, and I'll just say this, Adam, it's only by the grace of God that I'm sitting here talking to you today, because I can't imagine without his providence in my life, looking over me, that I would still be here talking to you, still have my family, still be doing what I'm doing today and making a difference. So it's really amazing.
Yeah. And again, I'm just going to say this, and I say again, because today we're recording a few different episodes, and every single person that I have talked to that has come to that point, we all come to a point where God is the answer. Like, we all come to this point where we really can only point up and say, there was some kind of divine providence. There was some kind of intervention that happened in our lives that wasn't just us, right? And guys, right after the break, we're going to go into exactly what happened at that point and how Brandon got clean, got sober, and how he's moved into this life of coaching high-achieving men. See you right after the break, guys. All right, guys, today's episode is brought to you by Recovered on Purpose. We are so excited about you guys being here on this page. If you guys want to be part of this show, or if you want to do a live with me and share your story to give hope to others, drop a message on this page and let me know a little bit about yourself. And guys, we're about to go into Brandon's story about overcoming, as well as what he does now with coaching high-achieving men. And Brandon's actually going to be giving away a free assessment that he actually helps his coaching clients with for everybody that's watching this show. Go ahead and check out the link in the comments and ask him for one, and he'll send it over to you. Love you guys, and see you right after the break. All right, guys, welcome back, welcome back, welcome back. As you were hearing before the break, obviously Brandon was going down a path that a lot of us know about when those oxys were running a storm in a lot of people's lives. So Brandon, what did it look like once you were, getting to the end of that OxyContin run?
Yeah. So this was something that me and a close friend of mine, we were both hooked, and unfortunately, my younger brother at the time was also getting into that world as well, and so we were all kind of in this together, and it kind of had moved beyond it being a game stage to like, hey, we've got to figure something else, because my brother was working as a firefighter. He had a very young age, and he grew up my dad's footsteps as a firefighter, and so it was really serious for him. He didn't have a family, but he knew that he could get popped with a drug test anytime. And I was self-employed, and my buddy he was also a firefighter as well. So they were facing that. But so we just knew that, hey, we've got to do something. Like, we can't go to, like, this is our conversation. We can't go to rehab. Like, I mean, I'm the breadwinner. I can't go to rehab. I've got to figure something out. Same thing with him. And so this was the time that Suboxone was introduced. I believe, I think it was in the infancy stages. So we found a doctor down the road from where I lived that prescribed that, and then we found another one that was closer by, and me personally, I started taking that, and that really, because all I desired, because we were also, it was one of those things multiple times where my wife had said, it's either your addiction or it's us, meaning, me and your daughters. And I knew that's not what I wanted. I knew that's not what God wanted for my life. I was not going to be that guy who was going to allow that to be the result of my life. I was not going to be a statistic. So I said, I'm going to do this. So just whatever it takes. And so just really, obviously you're trading one thing for another. But what it did for me was, it got me off the streets. It got me from, I say the streets, I wasn't living on the streets, but I was roaming the streets. I was banging on the dealer's phone nonstop, and also trying to live life and make a living.
Right.
So it brought some normalcy back to my life, and to say that I didn't continue to experiment, would be wouldn't be accurate, right? And I did. But there came a point to where I knew that, and my brother actually had gotten married and gotten into a relationship, and she did not know about the circumstance either. So he was forced to. It was actually just after he got married, he was forced to come off the Suboxone, and it was brutal. It was going to be something I had to do as well, and so I did it. My wife was fully aware of what I was doing, and she was for it, obviously, but it took a couple of weeks for me. So again, very grateful that I didn't, have to go into a rehab facility and kind of walk through that process. I mean, I knew what it was about. My dad had been. I'd actually taken my dad to one here locally, and actually went back and picked him up way too soon.
So how long were you actually? Yeah, how long were you actually on the Suboxone?
I probably took it for about two years, I would say, off and on. And this is back when insurance didn't cover it. So you had to pay cash for it, and some insurance will pay for it now. But it just brought some normalcy to my life. But I remember my brother and I, we would talk, and we, at times, in the beginning of it, we would still go to get, we would chase dealers and pills together. And I just remember thinking, what am I doing? Like, what am I doing? I was that father figure for him in his life. And here I am, we're getting high together. And
wow.
This is no way to be living and setting an example. So, but all together was probably about 2 years. And again, it just kind of brought some sense of normalcy to my life that I'm like, hey, I'm not out here chasing pills, but was very fortunate to have.
I have friends that have been saved by Suboxone, and a lot of people, there's all this different scrutiny and stuff with it. But I mean, I believe, like, personally, whatever is going to get you, like you were saying, a sense of normalcy and away from those streets and away from the dangers and away from the possible ODs and being able to support a life and then moving on in the future. So what did it look like? And that's why I kind of asked how long you were actually on the Suboxone, because there could be people watching right now that are on it that, you know, are wondering when they're going to be able to get off or how it is to get off. So what did it look like to get off of the Suboxone, and how long did it take to get over it?
Well, it was brutal. I remember, I worked for myself, so I just remember that it really, the first week was just, I had no energy, like none, and I couldn't sleep. Very much the same way when you're detoxing, like your skin crawls, you're cold, you just have that feeling, and then your mind starts wearing on you, like, what are you doing? Why are you doing this to me? Why are you doing this to me? So it was brutal. I remember going and buying cases of 5 Hour Energy. I think it had just come out and it did nothing. And so it was just one of those things where I just wrote it out.
Yeah.
And I remember it took almost a month for my brain to get back to normal, to where I could think straight. Cause I remember thinking, like, I can't even think straight and have normal conversations in some situations. I mean, it was tough in some sales conversations I had, but I remember this, Adam. I remember when it clicked, it was the fog lifted, and my mind was so crystal sharp and so clear for the first time in years, and I never realized how much fog and cloudiness the narcotics brought on me and into my brain.
Wow.
And I'm a firm believer is that is what opened my mind to attracting what came into my life after that point, with my faith and with me going, okay, God, I've been trying to do a few things on my own, and I know better than that. I'm ready to surrender to you. I'm all yours. And so
Yes.
I'm a firm believer is that that concise mental picture that I had played a huge part in that.
That's awesome. And I love that. And here's what I want to encourage people watching. If you happen to be worried about withdrawals you're going to be going through, or if you're on Suboxone or any of that and you're wondering about it, guys, there is an end point to withdrawals. There is. And there is freedom. Like he was saying, there was just like the mental fog just kind of lifted at one point. And guys, then, like, let's say it's a month. It's a month for the rest of your life. So Brandon, tell us about what you're doing now with your faith and with coaching people and the life you're living now with the family and all that.
Yeah. So that's the best part, right? It's the redemption story, that God has for us all if we just step into it. And so 2010, I read a book called The Purpose-Driven Life. And it's got 40 chapters in it, written by Rick Warren. And I just remember thinking, what am I going to do with my life now? And so 40 chapters in 40 days. And from that point on, it laid out a path of what I was here for. It didn't give me specifics, but it showed me how to start praying for specifics. And so, still doing kind of what I was doing, but I just knew I was meant for more. And so 3 years later, God brought a local church into our life that radically transformed my life, my family's life, and our faith, and has shown me how to grow in my faith and in my walk every year since. And throughout that, as I was mentioning to you, Adam, I went through a coaching certification program and learning how to be a better communicator and to speak, because I knew I had a message. I knew that there was something inside of me, kind of like what God's done with you, Adam. It's like, there's a people that need to hear, this redemptive story. And so just taking those steps, and that's kind of led me today to what I do is just, again, coaching high achieving men, because I didn't touch on this much, but when I started my business at the age of 23, I wasn't expecting that. I got into an industry, and then 2 years later, I started my own business and was making more money at that time in my life than I ever thought I would ever make. And so it gave me a glimpse of what that could look like. And then it was gone. Lost everything, lost all of my material possessions, almost lost my family. So that drive and that hunger stayed there, but it was redirected. And it wasn't all about the material possessions. It was all about what I could do through, what God's shown me, I'm here for, and to make a difference in others and still have, success, maybe just look a little differently. So today my faith is stronger than it's ever been, grows every day. My marriage and my relationship with my wife is stronger than it's ever been, and it's growing. And then also watching my oldest is getting ready to graduate college. My middle daughter starts in the fall, and then my youngest is in middle school. So, that is, my pastor says it this way: at the end of the day, if we finish raising our children, if they could love Jesus and love us, we feel like that's a win. Yeah. And so that's kind of where we're at this point, Adam.
Amen. I love it. So what does it look like when you say that you coach high achieving men? What do you mean by that? And what does that look like?
Yeah. So just taking these men who are business owners, who have kind of the seemingly successful, in their career, high achievers, whether it's a CEO or a business owner, and taking those individuals that are kind of in a place to where they've had that success, but at the same time, they know that they've said to themselves, man, there's got to be more. There's got to be more than this, because I'm at the top of the ladder and this ain't it. Yeah. And what it is that, they're Christians. They can call themselves Christians because they go to church and they believe they've received eternal salvation, but they've never really learned how to walk that out. Yeah. And to grow. So there's more in their faith. There's more in their marriage, instead of just kind of having that mundane relationship, and maybe there's a lot of arguments. Maybe it's just always constant, not seeing eye to eye, whatever it is. And there's more in their marriage, and there's more in all of their relationships. And so that's what I help these high achieving men do. And starting with mindset, getting intentional every day on their mindset, taking the time every day to be intentional, to think into what they want for their life, grow in their faith, focusing on their purpose. What am I here for, other than what I do every day, what my business does, what our company does, how I lead my people. In addition to that in addition to the rest of their purpose, and then also how to walk that out and make an impact and make a difference in this world.
I love it. Before we go, what would be, like, if someone out there is right at that crossroads, like at that ending point, that point where like they really want to get clean, but they don't really know if they can, what would be the piece of advice or the word of wisdom you would give them?
I would say find something that you value more in this world than anything. And it's something that you're willing to die for. It could be a cause, it could be a person, and use that as leverage to pull you out of the rut that you're in, because that is all that it is. Yeah. It's a rut. It's got an end on both sides. It's not a grave. You're not in the grave yet. Yeah. It's a rut. Use that as leverage to pull yourself out. And just know that there is life for you. There is life for you, and that God has a purpose for you, and He can use you and use your pain to change somebody else's life. There is purpose in your pain. So, I mean, just whatever it takes, scratch, claw, fight, because it is so worth it. It is so worth it.
Amen. And guys, before we go, drop in the comments what it is that you're willing to die for in your life and what your purpose and your passion is. Brandon, thank you so much for being here with us, brother.
Man, again, it was an honor to be with you today and spend some time with you, Adam. Appreciate you and appreciate what you're doing.
Awesome. Thank you, brother. Thank you. And thank you all for being here. We love you so much, and we'll see you next week. The black represents the darkness from which we came. The white represents the light in which we now live. And the red represents the passion it takes to live Recovered on Purpose.